Hey everyone, so it's time for the Straw Hats titles to change. Pirate Hunter Zoro is so ridiculously, absurdly outdated at this point. It made sense way back when he was a bounty hunter, but now it just feels like it doesn't represent his character in any way. And that's nothing compared to Cat Burglar Nami, which is just an absolute joke. That might have been accurate for like Day 1 Nami, but at this point, who even thinks of her as a cat burglar? And I don't remember the last time Chopper had any cotton candy. These epithets are frankly embarrassingly ill-fitting for the Pirate King's crew. It's like the Marines bounty department is somehow several years behind the times when it comes to giving out these titles. However, I think that may be largely intentional, as Oda could have been planning all along for some major title changes to come at the end of the Wano arc specifically. I think this arc is going to be the first one where we see some new titles thrown out for the Straw Hat Pirates, and I say this for a couple of reasons. First of all, it makes sense narratively with where we are at in the series. The Straw Hats are about to finally take down a Yonko crew. They are no longer going to be just up-and-coming pirates trying to climb the ladder. Rather, they're about to finally hit that level where they will likely be considered a great pirate crew, basically a superpower in the One Piece world. They are essentially going to be reaching their final stage of development as a pirate crew, and as such, I think if there is any point in the series left for the crew members to get new epithets, it is essentially now or never. After this, they're simply going to be in the final stretch of the journey, getting the One Piece and entering the final war. So there's not a lot of room to be getting new nicknames that stick from here on. And the other reason I say Wano makes sense as the arc for them to get new epithets is because one of the themes of the arc for some time now has been identity. As mentioned in past videos, lots of characters hiding identities, changing identities, trying to find their identities, etc, etc. I think considering both the stage of their journey, so the Straw Hats likely about to become a Yonko crew, about to be recognized among the great pirates of the world, as well as the theme of identity being important to the Wano arc itself. With those two factors, yes, I think now would be the time to see some new epithets on the next batch of bounty posters. Even just some of the more symbolic ideas of the Wano arc, with the parallels to the myth of the koi fish traveling up the waterfall and turning into a dragon, reflect a sort of evolution for the Straw Hat crew that I think we can expect at the end of this conflict. I also think that may be a reason that Oda has held off on updating their epithets for so long, as it would simply be more fitting thematically, symbolically, and narratively for that to happen at the end of Wano. So before we get into it, make sure to subscribe, and more importantly, I'm sure you all can't stop looking at the amazing poster that I have in the background. It's actually a beautifully detailed, minimalistic depiction of every single major character in One Piece by artist Aiden Capristo. And Aiden actually partnered with me to make this poster available for anyone to get in the new Morge store that we just opened. This is a supreme quality print poster done in museum grade paper with a sleek matte finish. It's got bright and intense colors thanks to the pigmented archival inks. Guys, this poster is honestly just a masterpiece. It's very rare to see artwork like this in the community. And if you want it for your own wall, or if you're trying to think of the perfect Christmas gift, then I promise you, any One Piece fan you know is going to love this. You can just hit the link in the description below to get yours today. So that being said, what are these new epithets going to be? Well, to start with, let me say I'm not 100% sure that every Straw Hat is going to be getting a new title. The reason being, some titles seem like they simply make sense for the character as they already are. For instance, Devil Child Nico Robin doesn't seem that strange considering Robin just had a full monologue explaining that she is very willing to be a devil for the sake of her crew. She now openly embraces that moniker, and it actually seems to be very important to her sense of self today. Not to mention that Robin has been a wanted criminal for decades at this point, longer than most of the crew members. It would be almost arbitrary for Robin to get a title change today at this point in her story, in my opinion. Okay, so then am I saying that it's going to be kind of random and that Oda is going to have some Straw Hats get new epithets whereas others just don't? No, my guess is that a simple dividing line as to who gets new titles and who doesn't may be that new titles might be in store for a lot of the younger members of the crew. I think that figures like Robin, Jinbei, Brook, or Frankie, who have been pirates or criminals for a long time now, may not get new epithets. That is just a guess, and I only really used Robin as an example, but let's say Jinbei for example. Jinbei has been a pirate for so long now, both allied with the world government as a Shichibukai and fighting against the world government under Fisher Tiger. He just has such a long and storied history that I don't know if he would just suddenly get a new epithet, and Knight of the Sea is a cool, fitting title as it is in my opinion. Next, Soul King simply seems perfect for Brook. I mean, you've even got Big Mom, a Yonko, putting respect on the name Soul King. I personally think that's great. And finally, Frankie. Sure, he has not been a wanted man as long as these other older members, but I do think he may simply fall under the category of, not really needing an update, since Cyborg Frankie pretty much perfectly encapsulates who he is. So really, it's when I'm looking at the younger, earlier members of the crew that I think they may be set for some updates. Luffy is literally the only exception, as the title, Straw Hat Luffy, is simply perfect. It is too iconic, too integral to his legacy to ever change. So let's start by talking about Zoro instead. So for Zoro, I think a very interesting possibility for a new epithet has already been dropped early on in Wano. We know that Zoro's parallels to Ryama have been played up. We can tell that Zoro is very likely a descendant of his, and is being made out to be a sort of modern-day Ryama in a sense. And Ryama actually had a title of his own, a title that it sounds like no swordsman since him has yet to be deemed worthy of. First, he was known as the King of Swordsmen, and then eventually he was even dubbed the God of Swordsmen. Now that's a powerful title. That's pretty much the greatest thing you could possibly be called as a swordsman, the God of Swordsmen. Is it possible that Zoro gets a title like that? Well, I don't know. As impressive as Zoro has been throughout the Wano arc, the title of God or even King of Swordsmen is pretty crazy. In Zoro's favor, Zoro has scarred Kaido, the first person to scar Kaido in 20 years. We also know that Zoro is going to defeat King, who seems very powerful in his own right. And we know that Zoro is one of the few swordsmen in the world who can now use advanced Conqueror's Haki by the end of this arc. So Zoro will clearly be an extremely powerful, world-class swordsman by the end of this arc, and he will certainly be the best swordsman in Wano by the end of this arc, not to mention his kingly attributes are being highlighted recently. So maybe the epithet of King of Swordsmen seems possible, but still God of Swordsmen, that's a pretty lofty title. Wano citizens didn't even call Odin the God of Swordsmen, and I don't know if people around the world would start calling Zoro the God of Swordsmen so long as Mihawk exists. Although on the flip side, these epithets are pretty loose. Usopp is already called a god after all, and it's possible that if Zoro comes out of Wano with the status of being, the strongest swordsman from the country of swordsmen, then maybe we do get to see him called, the God of Swordsmen in his next bounty poster. After all, Zoro's dream was to become such a great swordsman that his name reaches the heavens. So I'd say it's a stretch, but I do think talking up Ryama's titles earlier in the arc and sort of setting the bar of this legendary swordsman who earned these amazing epithets does kind of suggest that Zoro, who is walking in Ryama's footsteps in a sense over the course of this arc, he may earn similar recognition by the end of it. On the other hand, perhaps to keep things more unique to Zoro, as a sort of parallel to Ryama without exactly copying him, maybe Zoro's title could be something like Demon Swordsman. So opposed to God, he's a demon, something like that. After all, Zoro has been characterized by many as being a sort of demonic character throughout the series. That's generally what I see for Zoro's possibilities, something along the lines of Ryuma's title, so perhaps King of Swordsmen, God of Swordsmen, or Demon Swordsman, something like that. Just please not Pirate Hunter anymore, as that just feels like such a weak and honestly confusing title for someone that is the right hand of the Pirate King. Now next up we have Sanji. And Sanji is interesting as Sanji's title, Blackleg, is actually still pretty fitting for him. He wears black pants and he fights with kicks, Blackleg Sanji. It makes sense, it fits the visual of his fighting style, or at least it did for a good chunk of the series. However, if he were to have a name change, I think acknowledging the sort of major upgrade that his kicks have undergone over time makes sense, as now that visual of Blackleg has really been replaced with, more so burning kicks, right? Most of the time, Sanji's legs are on fire when he's fighting. I feel like Blackleg doesn't really represent what most of us think of Sanji's fighting style anymore. Now, we can't use Red Leg Sanji as that was Zeph's title, but perhaps something like Burning Leg or Flaming Leg might make sense. I would even say the epithet that sounds cool to me personally would be something like Devil Leg, as ever since the introduction of Diable Jambe, Sanji has begun associating his new style of fighting with the devil. Diablo itself means hot or spicy, which Sanji has explained is the gift of the devil. Not to mention his upgraded ability, Ifrit Jambe, furthers that association with the devil, as Ifrit means demon. I personally think Devil Leg definitely fits what we think of Sanji's fighting style today a lot better than Black Leg, as again, that was the old Sanji before he began incorporating his signature flames into his combat. However, the issue that we then run into is that there is a bit too much repetition in the Straw Hat titles. After all, I'm suggesting that, maybe Zoro could be Demon Swordsman, but then Sanji is also like Devil Leg or something. And then even if Zoro is called, let's say, God of Swordsman, well then Sanji's Devil Leg would still be pretty similar to Robin's Devil Child. And I doubt that Oda would just, repeat the same style of titles like that for multiple Straw Hats, as they stop feeling as unique. So I fully acknowledge that. However, I think it's impossible to really accurately predict every new epithet. I'm just thinking of fun possibilities. So you guys go ahead and list what combinations you think make sense in the comments. After Sanji, we have Nami, and this is an epithet that plenty of people have mentioned before as fitting for Nami, which is Weather Witch. I personally like that. We know that Oda likes alliteration from time to time with titles. It just fits who Nami is very simply. She's a woman who can control the weather, who can seem really evil and scary to those who don't know her, so a weather witch. I mean, there are even instances early on in the story of people calling her a witch. I'm not going to try to think harder on Nami, as I don't think there are any other real clues to think of new possibilities for a new epithet for her. I just know that cat burglar should change, because it's just like, who still thinks of her as a cat burglar at all? So then beyond Nami, we have Usopp. And this one is really tricky because God Usopp is a pretty amazing name. And Oda might just keep it that way for the gag. I think it would be really interesting if Usopp did get to have an actually great sniping moment in Wano, something that, would earn him a more, perhaps, sniper-related title, like maybe even getting back that title of Sniper King, but this time associated with himself, with Usopp, rather than the alias of Sogeking. But maybe Usopp just gets to keep the title God for the rest of the story, and that's not so bad. I'll leave Usopp alone for now. Maybe you all have a better title for him. And finally, Chopper is the last Straw Hat that seems like he is in need of an epithet change. Chopper really clearly needs it, not just a title change, but also finally a real bounty, hopefully. Yes, Oda might keep Chopper's bounty low again as a gag, but I do think that this might finally be the arc where things change and Chopper is actually recognized by the world government, simply because of the spotlight that Chopper got during the Onigashima battle. This moment where Chopper finally snaps and rages that he is not just a Tanuki, and finally had everyone around him kind of take a moment and acknowledge that felt like a moment where it's Chopper basically finally demanding some respect be put on his name. And unlike previous bounty increases for the Straw Hats like after CP9, where it was understandable that there may have been some confusion among the Marines, failing to recognize that Chopper was this terrifying monster that destroyed Kumadori, or Dressrosa, where, Chopper wasn't even in the arc. This time in Onigashima, in Wano, it did feel like Oda kind of went out of his way to make sure that Chopper can't fly under the radar. CP0 is literally there watching everything. And again, this felt like the moment where Chopper basically forced everyone to acknowledge him. So not only do I think Chopper might get a real bounty this time, I think his epithet may not be Cotton Candy Lover anymore, but rather something to do with him being a monster. I think he will have Monster something or the other as his new epithet, simply because that is how Chopper has been trying to present himself for a long time. That is once something that he used to be called that really hurt him, but over time, being a monster became a part of him, something that he embraces and that he is proud of. As being a monster, he can help those he cares about. So I do wonder if it's possible that the jokes of Chopper being the crew's pet, this Tanuki that follows them around, may finally come to a close with this arc, with Chopper being finally acknowledged as the Straw Hat Pirates monster. Not to mention, if this is the final change in epithets for the crew, I think it wouldn't be as funny if basically literally from start to finish, Chopper's entire life as a pirate was unfortunately viewed by the world as a joke, as that is definitely funny for a while, but it may not be funny at, the final stage of their journey if even then he is still not recognized as a valuable member of the Pirate King's crew. So what do you all think? Do you have ideas for new titles for the crew? If you do, then definitely comment below and subscribe, and most importantly, make sure to grab your own beautiful poster of every One Piece character in minimalistic style for Christmas. the perfect gift for yourself or any One Piece fan you know. Link in the description below.